Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today what we're doing is we're changing the clutch line, the clutch slave cylinder, and obviously the clutch fluid on my Aprilia Falco. So a couple of people after the last video I did ask could they see this, and luckily enough the timing worked out because I was about to go do it. So here we are and you get to see. What you'll need for this is .4 brake and clutch fluid. Pretty easy to come by. You'll also need, you don't need the new banjo bolts, but you need, you know, the ability to take off the banjo bolts. The banjo bolts on this bike are 14s, so you will need some way to get them. I have this lovely new HEL red braided line, which I have to say I'm a bit taken with the colours of. I'm really happy how it worked out. You'll also need a size 5 Allen to open off the sprocket cover, the sprocket cover on the bike, and an 11 spanner for the bleed nipple on the Falco as well. Then obviously optional, but if you're doing the slave change as well as the line change, you'll need a new slave cylinder. So this is my Oberon slave cylinder, which is really, really pretty. And it's something I'm kind of considering doing, is seeing can I get like a clear sprocket cover for this bike, because I really want to be able to see my brand new slave cylinder. So stay tuned to see do we do that. But first things first, what I'm going to do is move the camera, and we're going to open off this sprocket cover, of which there are 3 5mm bolts we need to move. You also need to remove the gear linkage, so I'll show you that, which you actually need a 10 for, so you also need a 10 spanner. And then we're going to bleed the system. Now I'm going to use my fancy new vacuum suction bleedy thing with the very, very noisy and small compressor behind me. But you can bleed this by hand. All you do is you pump your clutch a few times and crack open your bleed nipple, and while holding the clutch, close the bleed nipple again. Same process as bleeding it really. Or you can just open it wide and pump until it's all gone. Really up to you. Personally, it doesn't really matter when you're just bleeding the fluid out, but when you're bleeding again later, it's pump, hold, crack it open, let some fluid out or let some air out, and release again. I'm going to be using my new lovely automatic, well not automatic, vacuum bleeder thing, because it's just the best thing I have ever gotten in my life. And yeah, that's what the plan is today. So the purpose of this is, number one, I want to change these old lines because they're definitely stock lines. And also change the slave cylinder to try and make that clutch pull a little bit more friendly, because at the moment it's quite a tough pull. Look, it's quite possible my clutch plates might need looking at as well. That might not be helping. There's a couple of other things we can look at there, but not a bad upgrade for a bike that's 22 years old anyway. Swapping out the clutch slave, and really and truly there is a service interval on all of your rubber lines. These should have been changed years ago, so we're going to change them now. Okay, so the 3 bolts that you want to remove are here, here, and here. Those are your 5mm. And you also want to remove this bolt right here. So all that you're doing this one for is to actually allow this cover to come out. So you want to move that until it's loose enough to just pop off like so. Obviously remember the location. I've marked it a few times since, and mentally and, you know, by notes. And then the other bolts, which can be stiff enough to get out, are these 5mm Allens. There seems to be like a rubber grommet in them, which makes them that little bit tougher. But that's, anyway, they'll come out quickly. So I'm going to put you down now and take these out. Okay, so there's the cover off, those 3 bolts there. Now what we're going to do is put on the 11 spanner. Put on whatever bleed hose you have. I have my lovely automatic one. Well, not automatic, as I said, it's air driven. You want to open off this cap up here, which is going to require 2 hands because it bends this a lot, so you kind of need to hold it in place. Et voila. And now if you were not unbelievably lucky like me to have this bleeder, you would just have to bleed this over time with like a 1-man bleed system is what I've used before in videos, which is just a 1-way valve. You could just crank this all the way open and just keep pumping to your heart's content on your clutch, and it would excuse me, it would bleed this system, but you know, I'm gonna do it the easy way. So again, we'll turn this off, the camera off, and I'm gonna bleed all this out. Okay, so that is now pretty bled. What we need to do is remove, obviously, the clutch line itself, and just kind of note the routing. Now I'm gonna try pull the new line through with the old one. You can obviously take off these panels, but I'm going to be lazy and try not to. But like, if you're worried about it, just take off this side panel and it'll be, you know, it's really close. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove from the top and try pull that through with the, you know, the old line, pull the new line through with the old line if I can. Hopefully that works out for me. You're obviously going to see, does it? But as you can see there now, we're pretty empty there. I've loosened this off. There is always a little bit of liquid left in them though, so just be careful. Protect everything with blue paper or, you know, paper. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm pretty certain these are 5mm bolts. They are 5mm bolts. So again, 5mm Allens. I'm going to remove the, I think it's 3, 1, 2. So there is another one hiding behind some lines there. Let's see, can we gain access without too much hassle? It certainly looks like it's going to be. Okay, so I'll have to unbolt this little guy down here holding these lines, and then we'll have access. So I'll do that and we'll have a look. And there we go, bolt number 3. So I'm going to open those 3 off now and see, does my new attachment for my drill work? No, my drill is not strong enough. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Loosen them by hand. Okay, they're quite tight. I just don't want that resting on the engine. I'm gonna put some paper in front of it. I shouldn't have taken that off yet because I haven't loosened this, but it doesn't actually matter because they're all coming out as one anyway. I'll just take it off at the bench because I do need to put this little bolt on later. So I actually have to reuse this banjo, I think, don't I? Yes, I think I do. I think I have to reuse this banjo. That's okay, we'll put on new copper washers. I'm going to give this little piston a clean off. Just obviously make sure not to push this or anything like that. It's, you know, that's for actuation, so you don't want to push it. I'll also put a little dab of grease on this because it looks quite dry and this should be greased. I'm going to clean in around here as well, just to kind of clean it off a bit. It looks a bit dirty. We're also going to clean off this holder. You can get a new one of these from Oberon, but I didn't. But this is absolutely manky, so I'm going to clean that. And then we'll try pull through the new line and see how that goes. Okay, so we have the slave cylinder off. You can see here, this is the seal that can perish on these, but it hasn't on this one. Well, I'm not actually sure has it perished. The one thing is, you see all this crap here, so I've cleaned the holder. This is the holder, which is now nice and clean. And all this filth had actually kind of started to go in, so I have a feeling this was loosening over time, which obviously isn't good. I've also popped off this guy here, which actually fits like that, in behind the holder, and I've cleaned that as well, because that had quite a lot of dirt ingress in it as well. So I think this might nearly be something that needs a little bit of maintenance every now and again. Anyway, I have also taken off the old banjo with the bleeder on it and cleaned that up. One thing I will say is hold this piece of the bolt when you're actually opening the bleeder, because I was turning this whole unit when I was trying to just open the bleeder. So not a great setup. I don't really like it, and I'd rather a bleeder somewhere else, like a remote bleeder. I know you can get new clutch master cylinders now that have a bleeder up on the top, which would make a lot more sense. So I might look into getting one of them, but they're quite expensive. So we'll see. I know HEL make one, and if you watch this channel at all ever, you'll know I'm a big fan of HEL stuff, so it might be worth the investment. We shall see. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I have a cable tie here, and I have my new clutch line. I'm going to open off the clutch at the top, and I'm going to cable tie the two banjo pieces together, and then I'm going to try pull it through gently. We also have a guest camera person who's helped for the first time in over a year anyway. It's over a year. It's not over a year apparently. Either way, we have the guest camera person here, which will make my life a lot easier. So we'll just undo this top banjo, which I already had loosened, Like I said, do have your paper there or whatever else, because you're gonna have a little bit of leakage. And now what we're gonna do is just take out the old banjo, the old copper washers. We're not reusing any of that, so you can throw them away. I'm gonna dry that off as best we can and just keep some paper under it. Now make sure, so on this system, we have a 90-degree bend for the bottom. So up the top is the flat one, say, and then we want to zip tie this one to it. Zip cable. I'll be shot by my European counterparts for saying zip tie. Okay, so we definitely have to remove the top bolt on the oil tank. I'm kind of hoping that gives us enough space, because this channel in here isn't big enough to just pull the cable through. So to do that, you have to remove the 4 Allen here and up here, just to give you a little bit of wiggle room, and then remove the top Allen, which is quite tight, on the oil tank. I hope I don't have to remove it fully. I'm just going to wind off pressure. Hopefully that'll give us a little bit of movement. It does not give us any movement. Oh, because there's a bolt behind that as well, which looks quite large. Really hoping I don't have to disassemble the whole oil tank off the bike to get a new clutch line on. That would be incredibly annoying. Yes! Okay, one bit through. Right, so we had to take off this side panel to see what the hell was going on. And oil tank one. Old line is free. So we're going to feed this through here, which the new line should feed through easier because it's actually thinner, which it does, which is nice. Is that over or under that? I think it was under it. If we have to move it later, we can. Now, this is the tricky bit, because we kind of can see where everything's supposed to go now. So I'm just going to visually follow it up. There we go, so that should be it. Honestly, I should have just taken the whole thing apart in the first place and not been lazy. I tried to save time. But anyway, it's done now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do first, just to have that up pinned, is get one of my new banjos, get 2 new copper washers. You go copper washer, as always, through your loop, and then through your loop, then another copper washer. If you can't see, I apologize. It is incredibly hard for the camera person to get video, in fairness, in this tight situation. Now, that's just hand tight, so we need to remember to pinch that up later. Now, what we need to do is get everything kind of fitted up down here. As I said earlier, the space is really, really tight to do anything. But first things first, I want to just slip this back on. That is important. I'll have to line everything up now. Excuse me. A new Oberon slave, which there are new bolts in. And we want to put these together like that. Okay, like so. And then we want to slide. First I want to grease up that pin, actually. Excuse my manners. So I just want to put a little bit of grease onto that pin. The access on the Falco is interesting, to say the least. And now we want to try line everything up at once, which is always fun. When you're tightening these up, you want to be careful to tighten them all kind of evenly, so you don't pull anything in like at a mad angle, because you can actually damage stuff then. So just kind of tighten them all up, pinch them, and I will come back and give them all their final pinch in a minute. So what we want to do now is get this roughly in its position. Again, slide through our old banjo with the bleeder on it. And now the fun part, trying to rotate this in, which is never ever fun or easy. Okay, I'm gonna not show you this bit because I really need space and the poor camera person is welded to me. So now that we have that done, that's the new line fed up through there. and out the top. So, and obviously I'm going to just tighten that up, and then we're going to bleed it. I'll put all this stuff back together later. You don't need to see that because it's misery. But basically that's kind of all there is to it. Now I do think these probably need to be fed in behind this, so I need to check that. Although, did I just... Yeah, they probably need to be fed in behind it, so I'll do that real quick. Okay, so now what we're going to do is fill this up like so. And we're going to start the very fun, that's sarcasm, bleed process. If I could find where I've left literally anything. There it is. So I'd say what happened with this before is someone used the actual 11 to tighten this down rather than get in at the 14, because the 14 is quite difficult to get to. But that's why when I was opening the bleeder and closing it, it didn't actually work. So anyway, let's give this a quick go. Now, we already are pulling lovely, lovely liquid through the line, which is just great, because it honestly saves so much time and energy to do it like this. So, as you can see with this bleeder system that I have here, you can actually still bleed manually with it, which is pump, 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 the old style. And the good thing about it is, like that, you know, I always will finish stuff with a manual bleed. Always finish stuff with a manual bleed, just you know, I don't know, it's not that I don't trust the system, it's just that I prefer to see and feel everything. We are starting to build a little bit of pressure, so if you can, just get those bubbles there, right? See the bubbles? So watch this when I bleed it now, okay? Loads of bubbles. Bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. And those bubbles are the air that you want to get out of the line, because you want to have an incompressible fluid. Otherwise, your actual whole hydraulic system won't work. And obviously air is compressible, that's how you get compressed air, which, you know, is bad. So we want to get all of the air out of the line. And we'll call that done. Now, off the bat, that actually does feel like a nicer clutch pull. Oberon claim like a 20% better clutch pull or 25% better clutch pull, lighter clutch pull. And that does feel better. That does feel a little bit better. But we won't know until we're out on the road. So I will let you all know how we get on. Yeah, so I will run you through real quick what we need to tidy up. So what I need to do obviously now is put back on this side cover, which I have resting on this paper. Don't freak out, there's no tension on the wire at all. I'm also going to just clean up the clutch line as best I can. I obviously need to tighten back up the oil tank fitting, which you need to loosen to obviously get in at everything. It's a bit of a, the whole kind of setup is a bit of a pain, but anyway. So we'll tighten this back up, and then it's just a case of putting this back on. My clip in there is already reclosed. That's just actually really easy to open. Flathead screwdriver, then just push to close. That's done, refilled, and yeah, that's kind of everything. Do make sure to put back in these little breathers here. Anything else that you took off to gain access, and I'm obviously going to put back on my sprocket cover as well. But it is a real shame to hide this behind the sprocket cover, so I'm going to see, can I get a clear one made up, because I kind of want to show that off now. Anyway, I'll close out the video on that camera, because it's nicer. So that is that all cleaned up now, apart from the absolute devastation on the floor around me, which I need to clean up. All in all, a pretty straightforward job. I shouldn't have tried to take the lazy way at the very start. I should have just removed that side fairing. So how I would recommend doing this is remove the side fairing and remove that top oil tank bolt, which is a 23 millimeter. I think it was a 23 millimeter. Yeah, 23 millimeter. No, 24? 24, it was a 24 millimeter bolt. And you can just loosen that out a good bit, and it just gives you that space to get the new clutch line in behind it, which is, you know, pretty easy once you actually take off all the bits that you probably should take off. So how does the Oberon clutch slave cylinder feel off the bat? It feels pretty good. I mean, it's going to be difficult to tell until I'm out on the road and in traffic and stuff, but definitely feels like a good softer, smoother kind of pull. Now, that could be partially because these are new braided lines that don't have any swelling or anything going on inside them. And it could be the fact that it's just a brand new slave cylinder, not one that's 22 years old and has been used for 45,000 kilometers. This is why this type of maintenance is so important as well, though, because when you do it, you get new fluids, you get a new line, and you get obviously a new slave cylinder with new seals and everything else. So it's a kind of, it is a consumable item. Anything that moves a lot is kind of consumable. Bearings, clutches, pistons, everything like that is consumable. Obviously your paint and stuff isn't if you look after it, but anyway, I'm getting way off topic. The main thing is, I do think this is a job that anyone can take on if you're careful enough. Watch outs are, don't cross thread your banjos when they're going in, because you will ruin your lovely new slave cylinder, or you could also ruin your master cylinder. So just be super careful doing that. Make sure that you use new copper crush washers, or whatever type of crush washer that you use. I personally only use copper ones when I have access to them. And yeah, other than that, just clean as you go. So I cleaned up the inside of my sprocket cover. I cleaned up all around the area that I was working. So the little spacer plate, you know, did look far worse than this, which isn't even that dirty. The spacer plate was way worse, as was the little kind of metal gasket that goes there as well. That was also far worse dirt-wise. So just make sure that you clean all that stuff up as you go, because it is important, in my opinion, to just keep everything as tidy as you absolutely can. And yeah, that's kind of it. You know, it is a job that I think is worth doing no matter what, and it is a job that you do need to look at on your bike, because rubber lines are perishable. They swell over time, they get more weak over time, so they can't contain the pressure as much. If you change to something like HEL braided brake lines, which I've used, HEL are on all my bikes. All my bikes, except CBF, because it's just too expensive. It's that stupid link system, so changing lines and that's like €600. But rubber lines do stretch over time, and I would highly advise, if you're changing, to swap to something with a lifetime guarantee like a steel braided line. I personally have only ever used HEL, so that's the only ones that I can recommend. Other than that though, do have a look at, if you want to change out to fresh rubber lines, you absolutely can, but they do have a lifespan of I think 4 to 6 years. Have a look at your manufacturer specs. It does tell you in your service book when they need to be replenished, and do have a look at it, because it honestly will transform your brake feel. And if you have a hydraulic clutch, your clutch feel, it's just better. It's just better. And yeah, that's kind of it. One thing I want to do is I want to shout out this man here who I have been watching for a long time, Do It With Dan. He was recently diagnosed with MS. Obviously there's a couple of people who I've become good friends with over YouTube, also Paddy Outback and the GorillaBiker, who also suffer with MS. And just a shout out to those amigos of mine, because it's tough, and honestly it is, I hate using the word inspirational because it's kind of cringy a lot, but they are kind of inspirational that, you know, they get something, diagnosed with something like that, and just keep going. So big shout out to Dan. He's a young guy, same age as me, so you know, keep motoring along. You're doing great things with your channel, as we all know. And yeah, just wanted to shout him out, because that is a tough diagnosis to get, and I don't think I would handle it as well as he is, and definitely not as well as the GorillaBiker and Paddy Outback have. They're both absolute legends, and I love seeing them still being out and about, and long may it continue for both of them. And yeah, that's kind of it. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons, of which Paddy Outback is one, so an extra shout out to him. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it helpful, please do let me know in the comments. If you want to see any other things like this on the bikes, also let me know in the comments. And until next time, thank you again for watching. Adios. Outro crew. I do think a clear sprocket cover would be cool. Number one, I could see the sprocket, and number two, it would unhide that beautiful clutch slave cylinder. Maybe just a window on the clutch slave cylinder even, because there's a lot of other pipes and stuff in there that are kind of ugly, but I do think it'd be really cool to be able to see the clutch slave. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you think as well of braided lines. Do you switch to them? Do you like them? Have you tried them? Do you think they're nonsense? Let me know. I'm interested.